I'm with Doug Liman, and we're at one of these, we're actually at this complex, which is where a lot of filmmakers are. I think Oliver Stone is here. Do you know some of the other people who are here? And
No, I run into people here, but, you know, this is my LA office, and I really live in New York.
So you're out here doing, are you working on anything besides promoing Fair Game?
Yeah, no, we have our TV show Covert Affairs, and the writer's room is right down there. You know, which has a lot more connection to Fair Game than you might think. I mean, maybe everyone gets it because they're both spy stories. And actually, so taken by Valerie Plame and sort of the various challenges put on a woman who goes into the CIA to become a covert operative, that we brought a lot of those elements to Annie Walker's character in Covert Affairs.
I had no idea. What season are you on, or have you started?
We finished season 1. We got a big order for season 2, so the writers started on Monday, actually, this week. Yeah,
Excellent.
For season 2. And we've been working on it before that, but the whole room started on Monday.
So you're like the executive producer?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I mean, do you like working in television?
I do. It's really, because television is so character-oriented. You know, films, you can sort of, if you do enough special effects or enough action, you know, you can basically, you can sort of entertain an audience just with sort of money.
Mm-hmm.
But TV requires you to do great characters.
I would suggest, though, that Fair Game is an example of a movie that is more in that direction than some of your other movies, perhaps, have been.
Well, I've been always character-oriented on my movies. I mean, you know, Swingers is completely character-oriented. Go is very character-oriented. Even Born Identity, for an action movie, is very profound with its characters. I mean, you know, when I started doing action movies, I used a criteria for myself that really was sort of a reactionary criteria to the action movies that had preceded Born Identity, which started to feel like, you know, I don't know, like, called it like action porn. Where basically it's like the bare minimum amount of dialogue to get you to the next action sequence. And I said, you know, if you took, you know, one of those action movies that sort of preceded Born Identity and took out all the action scenes and just took all the dialogue scenes and strung the dialogue scenes together, like, what kind of story would there be? And for the most part, it would be a really flimsy story.
Definitely.
Because those action scenes are just trying to get you, I mean, the dialogue scenes are just trying to get you to the next action scene. And I said, you know, I'm going to hold Born Identity to a different criteria. I'm going to say, if we took all the action out and just strung the dialogue scenes together, would there still be a good movie here? And it, in fact, does hold up under those conditions. And Mr. and Mrs. Smith holds up to that criteria. And
definitely. No,
obviously, Fair Game is even more along those lines.
I would suggest that you're much more of a character drama here than an action movie. Although there are elements of thriller and action. Of all the movies you've made, I think this one is.
I mean, Fair Game's definitely the most serious of my movies.
I think so. Yeah, a big step, really, and perhaps.
But I see Fair Game as sort of a continuum, because also, you know, I used a lot of real life characters in Born Identity. You know, it's
based on research. You always do a lot of research.
Not just research, but my father had run the investigation to the Iran-Contra affair, which was, in and of itself, you know, could have been an interesting movie. You know, it's the President of the United States. My father was Arthur Liman. The President of the United States set up a secret CIA run through the National Security Agency, run by Oliver North, with its own Air Force, its own military, its own Navy, its own budget, to conduct covert operations outside congressional supervision. So anything the President of the United States wanted to do, he could just do through this thing called the Enterprise. Enterprise sounds like something you'd make up for a movie. It's real. It really happened. And my father ran the congressional investigation that uncovered it.
I watched.
And
believe me.
Yeah, and Born Identity took more characters from Iran-Contra than it did from Robert Ludlum's novel.
Right. Well, it took very little, as I remember.
It took almost nothing from the novel.
Yes, exactly.
It only took Jason Bourne. Every other character is from Iran-Contra.
What is your relationship to Tony Gilroy? I mean, you worked with him closely on the first one, or was it simply a script is to hand it in and then you and the
No, I was the producer, and
yeah.
I was a producer, and I hired Tony. And Tony actually hadn't read the novel, nor was he all that familiar with my father's work on Iran-Contra. And I basically gave him an outline for the movie and said, here's the story. And we actually locked ourselves in a room for 8 days and fleshed out the whole movie into, it was like about a 60-page scriptment. And that's basically the document that got the movie made. Then we hired Tony for about 5 weeks to turn that scriptment into an actual script.
But you also employed a relatively unusual approach to shooting the film in an almost independent film kind of way that drove everybody crazy. But the end results were so unusual for a studio movie.
You know, I like to think that I make independent films in the studio environment, and that, some of them are a little bit less independent than others, but that still there's an independent spirit that is, in all of my movies. And
Yeah,
part of it, you're filming me here in L.A., but I really live in New York.